Thanksgiving. My name is Claire, and I am 32 years old. I grew up in Michigan in one of those families where everyone lives within 20 miles of each other, and attendance at every holiday gathering is basically mandatory unless you want to deal with Grandma Helen's disapproval. Vanessa is my cousin on my mom's side. She is 2 years younger than me, and she has been the family's golden child since we were kids. Here's the thing about Vanessa. She is beautiful. Not just attractive, but strikingly, almost frustratingly beautiful. Long blonde hair, green eyes, a flawless figure, the kind of woman who could wear anything and still have men lining up for attention. And she knows it. She has known it since we were teenagers. The first time it became a problem, I was 23. I had just started dating a guy named Marcus. He was a graphic designer, very kind, a little shy. We had been together for about 4 months, and I was nervous about bringing him to Thanksgiving because my family can be overwhelming. But Marcus insisted he wanted to meet everyone. He said he was serious about me. Dinner was at my Aunt Diane's house. Vanessa arrived wearing a short red dress that was completely inappropriate for a family Thanksgiving. No one said a word because no one ever does when it comes to Vanessa. My mom just gave me a look that clearly said, "Here we go," and went back to mashing potatoes. After dinner, Marcus and I were sitting on the couch talking with my uncle about football. Vanessa walked over and inserted herself between us. She literally squeezed into the middle of the couch, pressing her leg against Marcus's. She began asking him detailed questions about his job, touching his arm when she laughed, leaning forward in a way that made her intentions obvious. I was sitting right there, and she behaved as if I were invisible. Marcus looked uneasy, but he is still a man, and Vanessa is Vanessa. By the end of the night, I found them alone in the kitchen. She had her hand on his chest, laughing at something he said. When they noticed me, Vanessa smiled sweetly and said, "I was just telling Marcus how lucky he is to have you." Marcus and I broke up 3 weeks later. He said he needed space and was not ready for something serious. 2 months after that, I saw him tagged in one of Vanessa's Instagram photos. They were at a bar downtown, his arm wrapped around her waist. That became the pattern. Every relationship I had, every man I introduced to my family, Vanessa would involve herself. It did not matter whether it was Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, or the 4th of July. If I arrived with a date, she arrived dressed like she was heading to a nightclub, and by the end of the evening, she had his full attention. There was Ryan, the teacher I dated when I was 25. Vanessa cornered him near the dessert table and spent half an hour discussing her volunteer work with underprivileged children. They exchanged numbers to coordinate a supposed volunteer opportunity. Later, I discovered they had been texting for weeks. Then there was David, the accountant. Vanessa asked him to help her move furniture at her apartment. I was not included. When I confronted David, he became defensive and accused me of being jealous and controlling. There was James. There was Tyler. There was Christopher. Every single one followed the same script. The worst part was that my family allowed it. My mom would pull me aside and say Vanessa was young and did not mean anything by it. My aunt suggested I should not bring men around if I could not handle competition. My grandmother told me I should try being more feminine, and maybe then I could keep a man interested. Eventually, I stopped bringing dates to family events. For years, I showed up alone. I told everyone I was focusing on my career and that I was content being single. The truth was, I was still dating. I simply refused to give Vanessa another opportunity. Then I turned 31 and met someone different. His name was Trevor, and he seemed perfect. A doctor. Funny, kind, attractive. We had been together for 8 months, and it was the healthiest relationship I had ever experienced. He kept asking to meet my family, and I kept delaying. But when Christmas approached, I could not avoid it any longer. I told Trevor everything about Vanessa. I explained the history in detail and warned him she would likely test boundaries. I asked him to stay close to me and not engage in her behavior. Trevor laughed. He actually laughed. He said, "Claire, I am a grown man. I am not going to let your cousin seduce me at a Christmas party. I love you. Stop worrying." I wanted to believe him. On Christmas Eve, we drove to my parents' best house. I felt physically anxious. Trevor held my hand and reassured me. Vanessa was already there. She wore a fitted white sweater dress and high heels that made her legs look endless. Her hair fell in perfect waves. She looked like a model who had taken a wrong turn on her way to a photo shoot. The moment she saw Trevor, her expression changed. "You must be Trevor," she said with a wide smile. "I have heard so much about you. Claire is so lucky." She hugged him, and the embrace lasted longer than necessary. Trevor remained polite but distant. He kept his arm around my waist, kissed my forehead, and stayed beside me. I began to relax. Maybe this time would be different. But Vanessa was patient. She spent the evening circling us, joining every conversation, laughing at Trevor's jokes, asking about his medical career. At one point, she spilled wine on her dress and asked Trevor to help her clean it, because as a doctor, he must know how to handle stains. I watched him hesitate. He glanced at me, then followed her into the kitchen. They were gone for 15 minutes. When they returned, her dress looked fine and Trevor appeared flushed. He said they had only discussed her mother's knee surgery and that she had medical questions. I felt furious, but said nothing. We left early. I told my family I had a headache. Trevor drove home in silence while I cried. He insisted nothing happened, that Vanessa was simply friendly, that I was overreacting. But I recognized the look in his eyes. I had seen it before, curiosity mixed with interest. We ended things in February. He said he needed to focus on his residency. In March, I saw him at a restaurant with a blonde woman. It was not Vanessa, but it felt familiar. That was my breaking point. I stopped dating. I stopped attending family gatherings. I told my mom I was busy with work and would visit when possible. She was disappointed, but I was exhausted from feeling embarrassed and defeated. Then something unexpected happened. I began volunteering at a literacy program at the local library. One program involved corresponding with inmates who were working to improve their reading and writing. I signed up because I needed purpose, and teaching literacy felt meaningful. They paired me with an inmate named Michael. He was 34 and serving the final 2 years of a 7-year sentence for armed robbery. His first letter was brief, thanking me for volunteering and expressing hope that he could strengthen his writing skills before release. I responded. I shared details about my job as a project manager at a tech company, my love of hiking, the Michigan weather, simple topics. His next letter was more personal. He wrote about growing up in Detroit, the poor decisions he made when he was younger, and how prison gave him time to reflect on the kind of man he wanted to become. His writing was imperfect but sincere. There was an honesty in it that I found refreshing. We began writing weekly, then twice a week, and eventually almost daily. Michael told me about the books he was reading, the anger management classes he was attending, and his plans after release. He hoped to work in construction and maybe attend community college. An aunt in Grand Rapids had offered him a place to stay until he was stable. I told him about my family, about Vanessa, about feeling overlooked and inadequate. Michael did not dismiss my feelings. He did not tell me to be more confident or ignore it. He said, "Your cousin sounds like someone who feels powerful only when she makes others feel small. That is about her, not you." The clarity of that statement stayed with me. We wrote to each other for 8 months. I began looking forward to his letters more than anything else in my week. He was thoughtful, funny, and open in a way the men I had dated never were. Maybe it was because he had already faced consequences in life, or maybe that was simply his character. One day, he wrote to say he would be released in 2 months. He asked if I would consider meeting him for coffee. He made it clear there was no pressure and that he understood the complexity of the situation. I said yes. I am not entirely sure why. Perhaps I was lonely, perhaps. He told me about adjusting to life outside, about his drywall job, and about staying with his aunt. I shared details about my work, my apartment, and my complicated family. Before we left, he asked if he could see me again. I said yes. We started dating officially, I suppose, though at first it felt unusual to label it that way. We went to movies, had dinner, and took long walks by the river. He was unlike anyone I had been with before. He listened when I spoke. He did not play games. He meant what he said, and he understood me in a way that was almost unsettling. He could sense when I was anxious or upset before I mentioned it. He knew when I needed distance and when I needed comfort. For the first time, I felt truly seen. In November, my mom called and asked if I was coming to Thanksgiving. I had been avoiding her calls, but I finally answered. She said the family missed me, that Grandma Helen had been asking about me, and that it had been nearly a year since I attended a holiday gathering. I told her I would think about it. That night, Michael and I were lying in bed when I brought it up. He asked why I was hesitant. I explained again about Vanessa, about the pattern, and about how I could not endure watching it happen one more time. Michael was quiet for a moment, then said, "Take me." I laughed and told him he did not want to meet my family. He replied, "I am serious. Take me to Thanksgiving. Let me meet this cousin of yours." I warned him it was a bad idea. I explained that Vanessa had undermined every relationship I had brought home. I described her as beautiful, manipulative, and relentless. Michael simply shrugged and said, "I spent 7 years in prison. I think I can manage your cousin." I thought about it. Then I decided, why not? What was the worst that could happen? Vanessa would pursue him. I would lose another relationship, and I would distance myself from my family completely. I was already close to that point, so I agreed. On Thanksgiving morning, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. Michael, however, seemed calm. He wore a simple button-down shirt and jeans. His hair was neat and he had shaved. He looked presentable, like anyone you would introduce to your family. During the drive to my parents' house, I gave him one final warning. I said, "Vanessa will be direct. She will flirt. She will touch you. She will try to get you alone. Please stay with me and do not engage." Michael took my hand and said, "Claire, I am not going anywhere. I promise." When we walked in, the entire family was already there. My mom hugged me tightly as if I had been gone for years. My dad shook Michael's hand and asked what he did for work. Michael said, "Construction," and my dad immediately began telling a story about building his deck the previous summer. Then Vanessa entered from the kitchen. She was wearing a fitted black dress with a low neckline and high heels. Her hair and makeup were flawless. She looked dressed for a cocktail event rather than a family Thanksgiving. The moment she saw Michael, I could almost see her calculating. She approached with a polished smile. "You must be Michael," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Vanessa, Claire's cousin." Michael shook her hand briefly. "Nice to meet you." Vanessa held his hand a second longer than necessary. "I've heard absolutely nothing about you. Claire keeps her life so private." She looked at me with a carefully neutral expression. "How long have you two been together?" "A couple of months," I replied. "That's so sweet," she said. "How did you meet?" I hesitated, unsure how to answer, but Michael responded first, "Through a pen pal program." Vanessa's eyes widened slightly. "Oh, like one of those online programs? That's adorable." "Something like that," Michael said calmly, unaffected. Vanessa shifted into her usual routine. She asked about his job, where he grew up, and what he liked to do in his free time. She touched his arm when she laughed and leaned closer when he spoke. It was the same pattern I had seen before. Michael remained courteous but reserved. He answered her questions briefly, then redirected his attention to me or others nearby. His hand stayed at my lower back. When Vanessa suggested he help her bring extra chairs in from the garage, he said, "I think your dad can handle it," and stayed beside me. I could see Vanessa becoming irritated. This was not how things normally unfolded. Usually, by this point, the man would already be engaged in her orbit. Normally, by that point, the man would be focused on her, looking for chances to speak with her alone, clearly affected by the attention. Michael was not affected. If anything, he seemed uninterested. Dinner followed the usual pattern. Vanessa sat across from us and spent the entire meal trying to draw Michael into conversation. She asked about sports, movies, and music. She shared stories meant to make her sound exciting and adventurous. She laughed loudly at jokes that were not particularly funny. Michael remained respectful. He nodded and smiled occasionally, but most of his attention went to my uncle's fishing stories and my grandmother's stuffing recipe. Under the table, he held my hand. After dinner, everyone moved into the living room. Vanessa approached Michael near the drink table and positioned herself so he could not easily walk away. I watched from across the room, my heart racing. This was usually the turning point, the private talk, the exchange of numbers, the beginning of another breakup. I saw her lean in close. I saw her touch his chest. She whispered something in his ear. Michael stepped back. He replied with something I could not hear, then walked away and came back to sit beside me on the couch. Vanessa remained by the drink table, visibly surprised. My mom leaned toward me and whispered, "I like this one. He seems steady." I nearly cried. We stayed another hour. Vanessa continued trying, circling the room and looking for opportunities, but Michael did not shift. He stayed beside me, engaged with my family, and treated Vanessa like anyone else in the room, not the center of attention. When we finally left, I felt lighter than I had in years. In the car, I asked him what she had said near the drink table. He paused before answering. "She told me you were damaged and insecure," he said, "and that I could do better. She gave me her number." My stomach dropped. "And what did you say?" "I told her I wasn't interested and that she should focus on becoming a better person before trying to ruin anyone else's life." I started crying, not out of sadness, but relief. It felt like something that had been tightly wounded inside me for years had finally released. Michael pulled over and held me while I cried in the passenger seat. He did not rush me or ask unnecessary questions. He simply stayed there. When I calmed down, I looked at him and asked, "Why didn't you fall for it? Every other guy has. She's beautiful and charming. She knows exactly what to say." He looked genuinely confused by the question. "Claire, I spent 7 years in prison," he said. "You learn quickly how to recognize people who are not genuine. Your cousin is unhappy. You can see it in her eyes. She's not confident. She's desperate, and desperation is not attractive." He paused, "And I'm in love with you. Why would I want someone like her when I have you?" I kissed him right there on the side of the road. That should have been the end. Michael proved he was different. Vanessa failed. For once, I felt like I had won. But life rarely ends that neatly. A week later, my mom called. She sounded upset. Vanessa had gone to her in tears, claiming I brought an ex-convict to Thanksgiving without warning anyone. She had searched Michael online, found information about his record, and said she felt unsafe and disrespected. I was furious. "Mom, Michael served his time. He's a good person," I said. "Vanessa is upset because she couldn't manipulate him." My mom sighed. "Claire, I know Vanessa can be difficult, but bringing a felon to a family event without telling anyone is not appropriate. Your father is very upset. Grandma Helen is worried." I ended the call. For 3 weeks, I did not speak to my family. My phone filled with messages. My aunt said I was selfish. My uncle said I should have disclosed Michael's past. My cousin Jessica, who I had always liked, sent a long message about considering others' safety and feelings. Only my younger brother texted, "Vanessa is being dramatic. Michael seems fine." Michael felt terrible. He said he should have encouraged me to warn my family, that he should have anticipated his record becoming an issue. I told him it was not his fault. My family was simply looking for another reason to make Vanessa the victim. Still, it bothered me. I had finally found someone honest and stable, and my family could not support it. Even when Vanessa lost, she managed to become the focus again. Christmas came. I did not attend. Instead, I spent it with Michael at his aunt's house. She made ham and mashed potatoes and did not ask intrusive questions or make passive-aggressive remarks. It was the best Christmas I had experienced. In January, I received a call from my cousin Jessica. She said we needed to talk in person. I almost declined, but something in her voice convinced me. We met at a coffee shop. Jessica looked anxious. She ordered a latte, but did not drink it, just held the cup. "I need to tell you something about Vanessa," she said, "and you're not going to like it." I waited. Last year, Vanessa started therapy. Aunt Diane insisted because she was having panic attacks. The therapist diagnosed her with something, I don't remember the exact term, but it essentially means she struggles with deep insecurity and seeks constant validation from men. "That's not an excuse," I said. "I know," Jessica replied quickly. "I'm not defending her, but the therapist encouraged her to apologize to you and confront what she's been doing. Vanessa refused. She said you were jealous and bitter and that she owed you nothing." I felt ill. Jessica continued, "After Thanksgiving, something changed. She came to my apartment that night and completely broke down. She said she didn't understand why Michael wasn't interested, why her usual tactics didn't work. She said she felt invisible for the first time." "Good," I said, and I meant it. "That's not all," Jessica added, looking down. "Vanessa has been obsessively looking into Michael online. She found his old Facebook page from before prison. She found news articles about his arrest. She even contacted his ex-girlfriend asking questions about him." My blood ran cold. "What?" She can't accept that she lost, Jessica said. She's trying to find anything that makes him look dangerous. She's the one who told your mom about his record. She printed out articles and showed them to Grandma Helen. I struggled to breathe. Why are you telling me this? Jessica's eyes filled with tears. Because she's planning something. She's talked about going to the police and claiming Michael made her feel threatened at Thanksgiving. She wants to get him into trouble, maybe even sent back to prison. I couldn't let that happen without warning you. It felt unreal. She wouldn't. Even Vanessa wouldn't go that far. Claire, she's not thinking clearly, Jessica said. She's desperate, and desperate people make reckless decisions. I left the coffee shop in a daze and immediately called Michael. I told him everything. He was quiet for a long time. I suspected something like this might happen, he finally said. When you have a record, there's always someone ready to question you. We need to be smart. We need to stop her, I said. There's nothing to stop, he replied calmly. I didn't threaten her. I did nothing wrong. If she files a false report, it won't hold up. But it will still show up. It will follow you, I said. He sighed. Probably. I had never felt anger like that before. Not jealousy, not embarrassment. Pure anger at Vanessa for being so selfish and reckless that she would attempt to damage someone's life simply to regain control. For 2 days, I tried to decide what to do. I considered confronting Vanessa directly. I thought about warning my parents. I even considered speaking to a lawyer. Then Michael said something that changed everything. Everything changed when Michael said, "What if we just let her do it?" I stared at him. "What do you mean?" "What if we let her file the false report?" he continued. "Let her go to the police. Let her put it in writing. Then we prove she's lying." "How?" I asked. Michael pulled out his phone and opened his voice memo app. I recorded our conversation at Thanksgiving, the one by the drink table when she gave me her number. I record a lot of conversations now, just in case. It's a habit from prison. He pressed play. Vanessa's voice was clear. "Claire is damn and insecure. You seem smart. You could do so much better. Here's my number. Call me if you want to have a real conversation." Then Michael's voice, "I'm not interested. You should probably work on being a better person before trying to ruin someone else's life." Vanessa laughed, sharp and irritated. "Wow, you're just like her, judgmental and boring." The recording ended. "This proves she approached me," Michael said. "If she claims I threatened her or made her uncomfortable, this contradicts that. It shows she initiated everything." I looked at him. "You recorded that just in case?" "I told you," he replied. 7 years in prison teaches you to protect yourself." We decided to wait. If Vanessa filed a false report, we would use the recording. If she didn't, we would move forward and leave it behind. 3 weeks passed. Nothing happened. I started to think maybe Jessica had been mistaken. Maybe Vanessa had backed off. Then my mom called. Vanessa had been in a minor car accident. Just a fender bender. But she was shaken and wanted me to visit her at the hospital. I said no. My mom became upset. She said I was being cruel, that Vanessa was family, that I needed to let go of whatever grudge I was holding. I hung up, but the guilt followed me. Guilt had always been part of my relationship with my family. I was conditioned to feel wrong for setting boundaries and protecting myself. So I went to the hospital, not because I wanted to see Vanessa, but because I needed to prove to myself that I could act with integrity. Vanessa was sitting up in a private room with a small bandage on her forehead. She looked surprised when I walked in. "Claire," she said softly, "I didn't think you'd come." "I almost didn't," I replied, "but Mom said you wanted to see me." She looked down at her hands. "I did. I need to tell you something." I waited. "I've been really struggling," she said quietly. "My therapist says I've been using male attention to avoid dealing with trauma from when I was younger. That doesn't excuse what I've done to you or to your relationships." I remained silent. Tears ran down her face. "I've been jealous of you for years. You've always seemed stable, good job, your own place. You're smart and funny, and people genuinely like you. I felt like I had nothing except my looks. I was terrified of losing that, of becoming invisible. So I tried to prove I was better by taking the one thing you had that I didn't." "My relationships," I said. "Yes," she whispered. "And I know that's messed up. I know I hurt you deeply. I'm sorry, truly." I stood there looking at her, the person who had undermined relationship after relationship and made me feel small for years. Now she was apologizing, admitting responsibility. I expected to feel victorious. Instead, I felt tired. "I don't forgive you," I said calmly. "I don't know if I ever will, but I appreciate you admitting what you did." She nodded, still crying. I turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, I hope you get the help you need. I hope you figure out who you are beyond your appearance. But I won't be part of that process. Don't contact me. Don't contact Michael. Leave us alone." In the hallway, I ran into Jessica. She hugged me and said she was proud of me. I asked what had triggered Vanessa's sudden shift. Jessica hesitated. Her therapist was contacted by the police this morning. Apparently, Vanessa had made an appointment to file a report against Michael. The therapist convinced her it was a terrible idea, that it would damage both of their lives, and that she needed to confront her feelings instead of trying to destroy someone else. I felt lightheaded. She was really going to do it? "Yes," Jessica said, "but she didn't. That has to mean something." I didn't respond. I left the hospital and called Michael. After I told him everything, he was quiet for a moment. "So it's over?" he asked. "I think so," I said. "Good," he replied, "because I have something to ask you." My heart jumped. "What?" "Move in with me." I laughed in surprise. "What?" "Move in with me," he repeated. "We've only been together a few months, but I spent 7 years alone in a cell. I don't want to waste time. I love you. I want to build a life with you." "Yes," I said. I moved in with Michael in March. We rented a small apartment near his job. It wasn't impressive, but it was ours. We adopted a mixed-breed dog from a shelter named Rocket, who had also been abandoned. We began building a quiet, stable life together, the kind that feels ordinary in the best way. I didn't speak to Vanessa. I skipped Easter and Mother's Day. I stayed in touch with Jessica and my brother, but I kept my distance from everyone else. In June, my mom invited me to the 4th of July barbecue. I declined. She cried and said I was tearing the family apart. I told her it had already been divided. I was just acknowledging it. Then something unexpected happened. Vanessa sent me a handwritten letter. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity stopped me. The letter was long and honest. She wrote about being sexually abused at 12 by a family friend and not being believed when she told her parents. She wrote about learning early that her appearance was the only thing people valued, that her body became her only source of worth. She described years of therapy, medication, and trying to understand why she behaved the way she did. She admitted that watching me succeed while she struggled made her feel inadequate. She convinced herself that if she could take away my happiness, she would feel better. She said she was now in intensive therapy, had cut ties with toxic friends, and was trying to build a life not centered on male validation. She did not expect forgiveness. She only wanted me to understand. At the end, she included a printed photo, one taken when she had taken David from me. They were smiling at a party. On the back, she wrote, "I'm sorry I made you feel invisible. The truth is, I was the one who felt invisible." I showed the letter to Michael. He read it carefully. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "You don't owe her anything," he said. "Not forgiveness, not understanding. She hurt you repeatedly. You get to decide whether she deserves another chance." "Do you think she deserves one?" I asked. He thought for a moment. "I believe people can change. I did, but real change is hard, and not everyone commits to it. Maybe she will. Maybe she won't, but that's not your responsibility." He was right. I wrote her a short response. I said I had read her letter, that I was sorry for what she had endured, but that I still needed space. Maybe one day we could rebuild something, but not now. She replied that she understood. A year and a half passed. Last month, Jessica called again. Vanessa was engaged to a woman named Monica, whom she met in therapy. They had been together for a year. Jessica said Vanessa seemed calmer, more genuine, more stable. She wanted to invite me to the wedding, but was nervous to ask. I told Jessica I would think about it. That night, I spoke with Michael. He said it was my decision and he would support whatever I chose. "If I go, will you come with me?" I asked. He smiled. "To watch you face your family again after everything? I wouldn't miss it." The next day, I called Vanessa. We talked for 2 hours. She told me about Monica and how therapy was helping her grow. I told her about our apartment, about Rocket, about the life Michael and I were building. It felt strange speaking to her like a normal person instead of an adversary. At the end of the call, she asked if I would attend the wedding. She said she would understand if I declined, but that my presence would mean a lot. I said yes. The wedding is in 2 months. I don't know how I will feel seeing my family again or watching Vanessa begin this new chapter. I don't know if I fully believe in change or if she has simply learned to manage her behavior better. I suppose I'll find out. Michael often says that life after prison teaches you to take things one day at a time. People are complicated. Sometimes they disappoint you. Sometimes they surprise